So I recently picked up the DJI Avata 2, and today I'm going to be going over my unfiltered thoughts of how this drone has performed over the first 2 weeks of having it. Now, why did I get the DJI Avata 2 specifically? Right now, if we're being honest, we all know that this is like the best time to get into FPV if there was a best time to get into it. With the release of the new DJI Avata 2, the DJI FPV and the original Avata have become so much more accessible on the used marketplace. You can get them for like half of what they were 6 months ago, and it's unreal. Now, the DJI Avata 2 does come in at close to double the price of the FPV in the original Avata, depending on where you look. And I'm referring to the used marketplace. Does the DJI Avata 2, however, have the features and the specs that actually warrant you paying the extra price tag for the Avata 2? Now, stay till the end because I'm going to be going over why the Avata 2 does fall very short of what I had hoped. Now, before asking yourself if you actually need the DJI Avata 2 specifically, I think you should think backwards on what it is that you're actually looking for out of a drone. Are you just somebody that's going out there looking to do stunts, dives, backflips, power loops, and different tricks within the FPV space? Or are you actually trying to get cinematic footage, that crispy 4K, great motion blur, all those different things? Because there are many different routes that you can go. Now, when I thought backwards of what I was looking for in a drone, here are a few of the things that I had to consider. I personally got this drone because I do film commercially and I need some of the specs that this boasts. I absolutely needed the ability to shoot in 10-bit D-Log. And for those that don't know what D-Log is, it essentially makes a very flat color profile to allow as much flexibility in post-processing to allow you to color grade it to fit any vibe or mood or feel that you're really going for. Every other camera that I have films in 10-bit, and so I had no choice in the commercial space to get another drone like the Avata 2 that also did 10-bit. Now, the next thing that was a must for me was I needed the ability to film indoors. If I was in like a warehouse or a restaurant that wanted like indoor FPV footage in the future, something like that, I needed something specific like this because this is one of the lightest FPV drones on the market, and it also has very durable prop guards, which are a very big deal to me. Now, if we're talking about the flight time on the Avata 2, it boasts a 23-minute max flight time, which is just absolutely crazy. I had the DJI FPV, it didn't come anywhere close to that, and I know that in the actual world of building drones from the ground up, that's kind of an unheard of concept. They bring like 19 trillion batteries, and anyone that flies real FPV out there knows exactly what I'm talking about. 23 minutes is pretty crazy. The other thing that DJI has done very well at is the fact that these come with Rocksteady as well as Horizon Steady built into the drones. And for those that don't know what those are, Rocksteady is an internal stabilization that makes it so that when you're flying and you're going from left to right very quickly or just doing really jittery abrupt movements, it lessens the jitteriness in post and allows it to look a lot more smooth when you're actually putting it into a video. This wasn't necessarily a game changer for me because really anyone can download what's called Gyro Flow, and you can upload your footage to that, and you can go ahead and tweak and fine tune the different stabilization algorithms that you want behind your footage. Internal stabilization isn't necessarily needed. I have a good friend that flies real FPV. He built it from the ground up and he uses Gyroflow and it works just fine. Now, one of the bigger selling points for me was the new DJI O4 transmission system. Having the DJI FPV, I was already incredibly impressed with how far I could go and how clear the goggles came in with the transmission between the drone and the actual headset itself. And that was only like the O2 or the O3 transmission system. So having the O4 has been a dramatic difference. Now, the new motion controller is about 900,000 times better than the original one before this. They also put in what's called Easy Acro into the new motion controller, so those that want to do flips and really cool FPV moves have a variety of those at their fingertips without having to learn the actual DJI Controller 3. The interface on this one makes a whole lot more sense to me, and it feels a lot better in the hand. I also like the improved trigger here that allows you to fly backward by just doing this. That was a huge drawback with the original FPV and Avata. Now, DJI has also done something else called the AR cursor. If anyone's ever played the Oculus Quest 2 or 3, when you're like holding the controller like this and you can kind of select things on the screen that you're seeing right in front of you in your goggle, it's got a little line with a circle on it. That is tremendously easier to navigate through settings with the motion controller using the AR cursor. For me, this was a moment where DJI was truly looking out for their customers and evaluating how to make their lives easier so they didn't have to navigate through a complicated menu. It's very intuitive. Now, if we're talking about the new Goggles 3, these are substantially more comfortable than the original FPV goggles. I didn't actually try the Avata goggles, but I love this one, how you can kind of make these adjustments right here in the back to loosen and tighten it, and it stays in place, which is awesome. I love this headrest because it kind of keeps more of the pressure off of your nose and more on your forehead. I know that if I were to be flying FPV for more than about an hour, I'd get a hot spot on my nose, and you take off the goggle You can see the little red spots on your nose. That's not as much of an issue with this anymore. This is also way more streamlined, and they have what's called pass-through mode. I think that's what it's called, where you're essentially wearing it, and you can actually double tap. Oh, that looked dumb. You can double tap the side, and it will actually show you your surroundings using these two cameras in the front. So you can see, if you got a phone call or someone tries to talk to you, you can just double tap. It will bring your current screen that you're flying your drone with to the top left corner, and you can see all of your surroundings, and you can double tap, and that screen comes back to being your primary screen. That was like, wow, so useful. I use that constantly. I also think that the diopter adjustments on the bottom are way more intuitive, and they lock into place very well. Now, the 46 gig of internal storage is like kind of cool, I guess, but if we're talking in terms of recording in 4K, that is not a lot of memory. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the wireless broadcasting to phones. I think they call it like Live View or something. I haven't actually used it yet because I've only had it 2 weeks, but the concept of being able to share this with your friends as you're flying without any sort of wires is like such a game changer. Now, let's talk about where the Avata 2 falls very short for me. I actually purchased the DJI Mavic Mini 3 because it has vertical shooting mode. Most of the work that I do commercially and for fun does end up going on Instagram, and I would love a format that would allow me to film vertically without having to crop in on 4K. I really genuinely thought that with the original Avata, they would make the upgrade to the Avata 2 as an FPV drone that would also be able to film vertically. Sadly, this was not the case. DJI, if you ever see this video, I will be ready to poke you with my debit card the moment you guys create a vertical filming FPV drone with prop guards. The second thing that is like so annoying to me is that it does not offer filming in 24 frames per second. Number one, filming in 24 allows you to let in just a little bit more light, a little bit of a less noisy image, if you will. But primarily for someone that shoots a lot of high speed stuff, chasing cars, doing different things like that, I love the motion blur that comes with 24 frames per second. And the fact that it forces me to go to 4K 30 instead of 24 is not a huge difference, but it's just that much less motion blur, which I wish wasn't the case. Here's one of the biggest gripes, and really what diverts people from actually buying from DJI in general, including myself at one point, is if this thing breaks, if you run it into a wall, if you crash it in acro mode, or you do anything reckless with it, you're going to have to send this back to DJI in order to get it fixed, unless you're an extreme tech wizard, which I am just not. From the point in time that you send the drone in to get it fixed to the point in time you get it back, it's usually about a 2 to 3 week process, and emailing back and forth with the customer service team, which I've had experience before in the last video about the DJI FPV, and I would rather drive a nail through my foot than deal with DJI customer service. You just have to know flying that you can't be as reckless as you want to be, because this isn't like a traditional FPV drone where if a arm breaks or some wire comes loose, you can just go into your toolbox real quick and fix it. It's a whole process sending it to DJI and getting it fixed and having it sent back. I am planning to make a full review of the DJI Avata 2 once I've had it in my hands a little bit longer, but these are my first impressions with it after the first 2 weeks. So far, what I recommend it to people, absolutely I would, because of the 10-bit footage, the rock steady, the new improved goggles, and motion controller have been a game changer. For me, it is worth about the $1,400 price tag in the US. If you're a pilot that wants to do a lot of tricks, genuinely, I don't recommend this to you. I recommend that you go with the traditional FPV route, but there is way less tech inside of it, like the return to home, the obstacle avoidance sensors, and some of the other tech in the Avata 2. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay creative.